All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Rise and Grind Morning Show. It's Friday, the 13th. Really? Well, welcome in today. And we got a jam-packed show. I'm your host, Will Rock. And Riley should be joining us at some point. He was having some audio issues. But this morning, I wanted to recap what Brad Holmes discussed yesterday, which is quite a bit. And I love having that validation. Those victory dances that you guys don't get to see me do. But we're going to talk about interior defensive line and why it's so important, because Brad Holmes said so, right? And it's a philosophy thing, right? It's a schematic thing, but it is an NFL philosophy of having a strong interior defensive line. In exactly what Brad Holmes says is exactly the same things that I think about when I think about building a complete team. So he also talked about edge, and he did mention the name Ahmed Hassanin. So we're going to discuss that as well. And then he also did Frank Ragnow. What else did he discuss? He talked about Ben Johnson. The Frank Ragnow one I was a little bit miffed on as to why he says he didn't know or didn't have any really an idea that Frank was going to retire. I think that there was more communication than that. I think what he was saying on this podcast was you don't know. Like, you don't know how long guys are going to play in the NFL, but surely he knew something was going on. He had to. Let me see if Riley's still not back in there. So let's just get off and running this morning. I want to bring in, we'll do a few videos. We'll listen to it. We'll talk about it. And then we'll get into some other Detroit Lions news and rumors and whatever else we have going on around the league. First and foremost, little breaking news. Let me start with this one first, actually. Antonio Brown wanted on attempted murder charges, alleged attempted murder charges, stemming from a fight that broke out at some sort of celebrity boxing event or something like that. Apparently there was a pew-pew involved and some bang-bangs went off, and now he's being sought for an alleged attempted murder. Be interesting to see how this boils down, but it's unfortunate because there was just conversation that Aaron Rodgers kind of wanted Antonio Brown to come back into the league and possibly play for the Steelers. I don't know if there's any weight to that. Obviously, a lot of rumors. So, man, just sucks for these guys to go through the careers that they have, to end the way that it did for him, and then now facing these potential issues. That's just that's not fun. That's not fun at all. It's not good, man. And hopefully, everyone involved is okay, or as best as they can be. All right, so let's get to it. Let's bring in this first video. Let me make sure it's all loaded up here. We'll do D-line first. So good morning, mods and members. Appreciate you guys. If you want to become a member, do us a favor. You tap the link in the pin message. You can become a member of the show. I think it's like $3.99 and up from there. And then, of course, do us a favor as we get rolling already this morning. Make sure you hit that like and make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you haven't subscribed, send me an email and tell me why. Mailbag@rockdown.com. I would love to know why you haven't subscribed yet, when over 45% of you listen each and every day, especially in the season when we're pumping out a lot of content, we're getting millions of views. That's when you guys seem to really be more involved. We're almost to the season. We're a month away. We're in that lull period now where it's just going to be a whole lot of nothing. I might change the schedule next week so that we can take a little bit more time off and get a few more things done. What was that I just saw about Shamar Stewart in the chat? There's been a lot talked about with Shamar Stewart and the Bengals. I discussed it last week. Or I'm sorry, this week. Okay, so Kevin Barr, Shamar Stewart, someone told me yesterday, and I didn't have the whole story, but what am I missing about this holdout and abrupt exit from OTAs? We'll touch on that. We'll touch on that right when we get done with this first video. All right, let's get rocking and rolling here.
Well, obviously, you're able to add a guy inside on the interior offensive line in the draft, but I was going to ask you about about the investment in the interior defensive line,
Yeah.
which seems to be a theme for you guys.
Yeah.
It was Tyleek Williams,
Yep.
right? And I'm hearing him touted as being like an Aleem McNeil Jr.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of similarities. Just the more you dive into his game, the thing about, so Aleem, when he came out in 21, he was probably tilted more nose tackle, but you saw this dancing bear in him, that there was a 3 technique inside of him. And now, at this point, he's shed weight, he's got his body right, and now he is a 3 technique, where Tyleek actually is probably, when you kind of compare both of them coming out, Tyleek is probably a little bit more developed than Aleem was coming out. So, but there are very similar players, because Tyleek's got some movement skills in him. He's got quickness. He can move laterally. He can bend. He's stout versus a double team. And not only do they, like, player-wise compare very well, but like even personality, like,
well, that's a good thing.
They're kind of the same, kind of just mild mannered, good kids, kind of soft spoken, smart, really handle their business, man. I'll never forget when we had drafted Aleem, I was like, hey man, you ready to be a Lion? And he was like, yeah, sure, man. It's all good.
It's pretty
like, man, do you really want to? But then when we gave him his contract extension last year, and when we got the deal done, I called him and I was just like, hey man, congratulations, got it done. And he sounded like, man, I really appreciate you guys believing. I mean, like, he was, and I told him, I said, Aleem, you sound exactly like how you sounded when we drafted you, dude.
Yeah.
And Tyleek, has very, very similar personality traits.
Well, that's great. And it's probably, Aleem probably loves knowing he's the prototype now.
Yeah.
That's pretty flattering.
Okay. So we're going to discuss some more things that they're talking about. What is the main thing, that he was talking about in this segment, where it's, man, if you don't address the interior defensive line, you're going to have some trouble. Riley, I think that, are you back? I can hear something in the back of my headphones here. If you wouldn't mind muting for me. So I guess to keep the main thing is Brad Holmes is discussing how it's important to have an interior defensive line presence. And the interior defensive line is extremely important for the edge rushers. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit, the next segment a little bit too, because he talks about edge. He talks about Ahmad Hassanin and how important it is to have those roles identified in the interior of the defense. It's something that we've been talking about on this channel for a long time, or at least I have been. And I feel like I'm probably the only guy that's talking about exactly what Brad Holmes has done, exactly what I thought that he would do, and he's done it. For 2 years in a row, I thought that he would go interior as opposed to adding another defensive end early in the draft or, high-end free agent. So for me, it's this simple. If you cannot get pressure on the quarterback from the interior, if you cannot bottle up the running backs, with stellar interior defensive line play, the edge rushers won't have a shot. I mean, there's so much you can do on the edge, but it's almost like being a corner out on an island as an edge rusher. If you don't have any interior defensive line presence, if your linebackers can't fill in behind the interior defensive line, it's like putting an edge on an island. You're asking them to do everything at that point, to take on blockers, worry about the quarterback, worry about the running back. It's too much to handle. But if you can affect that pocket immediately with an interior defensive lineman, it makes the edge job that much easier. I shouldn't say that much easier. It makes it easier for them to be able to do what they need to do. And I think that we've seen it. What is the one stat that they just threw out? Or I think he's going to throw out here in just a moment. The Lions were 3rd overall in pressure rate last season. And this is what I don't understand. I know that there's some fakers out there that try to, say that they do the stats and the facts and the analytics. That's me, right? That's how I've always been. And I know that there's someone out there that is trying to copy what I'm doing, and you can copy all you want. It's not going to be legit. If you don't understand the stats and the analytics that the NFL is putting out, or PFF is putting out, or Next Gen, or it doesn't matter where you're getting it from. But if you don't understand it and how to incorporate that with video, the third overall pressure rate is huge. Sacks do not matter. They really don't. That is just a glorified number that people attach themselves to. TFLs is the most important thing. A TFL is a sack on a quarterback. It's the same thing. It's just they call it a sack. So if you can get TFLs and get pressure, that is how you're going to affect that ball coming out of that quarterback's arm. And that's also how you're going to affect the running back from being able to do his thing, out of the backfield. So it's getting pressure will affect the game. How do you think we won 15 games last year? Especially after week 6, when everyone said that we weren't going to win any more football games because Aiden Hutchinson went down. Well, we won football games because we were still able to get pressure. Now, we manufactured a lot of pressure when you're getting closer to week, 12, 13, 14, and we just lost, 6, 7, 8 more guys. You're having to manufacture a lot more pressure with design blitzes. Now, the blitzes get you in trouble, all right? It's a double-edged sword. You blitz everybody, and then you don't have anybody to fill into what their assignment was, what their details were. And that does put a lot more pressure on the corners and the safeties to have to really stick on their assignment. So it's like I said, it's a double-edged sword. Being able to do it naturally, being able to win your one-on-ones naturally and not have to manufacture pressure is the best way to play the game. And I think that you can go back and look at the Philadelphia Eagles from last season and see how that front four won. Now, that front four won not because of their defensive end play. They won because they had 4 guys across the defensive line that could all win their assignments. Put it this way. If you have 2 elite defensive ends and let's say 3rd string defensive tackles, you're not going to win a whole lot. They're just going to gas you up the middle all day. To make matters worse, if you then have, 2nd, 3rd string, maybe 1 first string linebacker backing them up, they're going to gas you through the middle all day. If you start to plug and put pieces in to fill in the defense, and you've got elite players everywhere, now you can see how Brad is starting to assemble this team. Aiden Hutchinson, 2nd tier elite guy, right? In my elite rankings, he's in that 2nd tier of elite. Myles Garrett's in his own tier. And then you look at defensive tackles. Aleem McNeil was a top 10 defensive tackle while he was in last season. He was top 6 at one point. DJ Reader was a top 20, 25 at some point through last season. Levi Onwuzurike was a top 16. I think that's the best spot that he got to. Who else am I going to go with here? Alex Anzalone, one of the best linebackers in the league last season. Jack Campbell, one of the best linebackers in the league last season. Right? Derek Barnes starting to have a really good season early last season. So when you look around the defense, it's not 2 NASCARs coming off the end. No, you've got NASCARs and Ferraris and Bentleys, and we don't have any Pintos, like someone said the other day, floating around on this defense. We've got some really good football players, and we've got some elite football players, and it's a good mix of everybody. I'm going to bring Riley in here in just a moment, and we'll get to the second video. Give me just a few seconds here. I'll go to a break while I do that. Give me 1 sec.
Adam Schefter at ESPN says there's 275,000 people.
Well, that was some party in downtown Detroit. 775,000 people, shattering the NFL draft attendance record.
This is the future.
Okay, Riley, do you got audio, buddy? No, we don't. We had audio because I could hear you. I could hear it in the background. Uh-oh. Well, this is what happens when you disconnect computers, right? Can you hear me? We just can't hear you, and you're not muted. Your mic's not muted. It's not on my side. I only need to turn on two things to give you audio. They are on. I don't know, buddy. When you dropped out and came back in, so when you came in, I could hear the audio, and then you left, and when you came back, make sure nothing's changed. No, we don't have audio, so we're gonna have to. I'm gonna keep moving forward here. See if you can't figure it out. Okay. I'm going to just roll into the second video, and maybe that'll give us some time to get Riley to get his audio figured out. So this next video, he talks about Ahmed Hassanin and the edge position, and he gives a nice shout out to the media. And I think it's more than just the media, right? I think it's the fan base that is forever trashing Brad Holmes because they didn't get their edge rusher. And I'm just going to not be polite about it. You've gotten it wrong. Okay? You've gotten it wrong for 3 or 4 years. That says something, right? That either says you don't understand football, you don't understand how to build a football team, you don't understand the direction that this team is going in. And for some of the people that are out there pushing that narrative, I don't get it. Like, at what point are you going to buy in and realize that Brad's way smarter than all of us? Yeah, I happen to get a lot of things right. So what? I'm just one. But there's many more people getting this stuff right because they pay attention to the nuances of the team. They pay attention to what the team needs are. But some of you don't do, some of the things that I do as far as all the analytics and studying, how teams have been built over, generations of the NFL and the proper way to build a team today. It's just watching trends. If you watch trends from around the league, you'll start to pick up on a lot of things. And more importantly, it's studying how each position helps a team grow, and at what point does it help the team grow the most, and at what point do you need to bring in certain players. The one thing that I said this season was I expected Brad to actually go down and double dip on. See, now I got audio, Riley. I can hear you're messing around in the back, so don't touch anything. I expected Brad to double down with, and if you've got me playing on your phone, I can hear that coming through too. Well, then he just dipped out, so now he's going to lose his audio. Anyway, I expected Brad to double down and grab an edge rusher to backfill for Aiden. Only if Aiden was to get his extension, right, prior to the draft. Didn't happen. But the one thing that I did say was that both JMO and Aiden were going to get the 5th-year option before they got an extension. Everyone else was saying that they were going to get their extensions. I could tell by the way that the roster was getting laid out and by the cap space now and in the future was starting to get impacted by some of the other signings that they had recently, namely Jared Goff. It's probably going to take a minute. Or, there's a lot of fans that were saying that, nope, they're going to give, Aiden an extension right away. He's going to be fine. His leg's going to be fine. They're just going to give it to him. No. Why would a GM do that? Why would a team do that? Why would they take a huge risk on $160 million contract potential on a guy that just shattered his leg? That would be the dumbest thing since sliced bread. You know what I mean? That's how they say it's the smartest thing since sliced bread. No, it would be the dumbest thing since sliced bread, because you'd be taking a huge risk. You'd have to take out a huge insurance policy. And I don't even know how big those insurance policies can get. Honestly, I've never researched that end of it, but it's waiting to see what he can do. And now Brad is very comfortable, or starting to get very comfortable, with Aiden. Now they expected him to come back, and you'll hear that. They expected him to come back ready to go. What are we, 9 months now after his injury? Maybe longer? Yeah, about 9 months. He should be healthy. If that was a 12-week injury and he was supposed to come back for a Super Bowl, I don't think he would have ever been close, because he's still, getting through it. Even a month ago, he was struggling a little bit. So anyway, let's bring in this second video, and let's see what Brad has to say. And then I'll jump into the chat after that. All right, here we go. Brad Holmes on Ahmed Hassanin and the edge position.
Let's talk about the edges, and maybe this is a chance for you to get your Brandon Bean on. By that, I mean, it's tell the media that they don't know what the hell they're talking about sometimes, where you guys are third in the league in pressure rate last year. Yeah. And, it's like, it feels like probably every week you're fielding a question about, hey, how about another edge rusher, that sort of thing. Just give me the state of the edge position for you. I think obviously a lot of people want to know how Hutchinson's progressing. Yeah. But I also thought, as a side note, and I read something this morning about Big Z possibly coming back, I thought that was one of the most impactful signings of the year on any team.
Yeah.
Talk about pulling a rabbit out of your hat. I love his game, and it showed up in Detroit. So what's it look like out on the edge?
Yeah, so, Aiden looks great, man. He's been out there in OTAs. Really didn't expect anything else. You never truly know, because you don't have a crystal ball, but just knowing how that guy's wired and how he attacks things and how in tune he is with his body, it did not surprise me. I mean, he's out there. He looks explosive. He's changing direction. I mean, he looks really good, man. And then we brought back Marcus Davenport on a one-year deal. He was playing really good football for us before he unfortunately got hurt, man. And so hopefully he gets better luck on his side. And so, and he's been out there, and I would say he looks just as good, man. Like, he has been, his body is feeling great. His body looks great, man. And he had a good summer as well in terms of the OTAs. And then, we brought Al-Qadim Muhammad back that we signed last year, who logged some good snaps for us, played good football, plays hard. He's physical. He'll set edges, man. He plays with a lot of effort. And then we were able to draft Ahmed Hassanin from Boise in the 6th round. And he's just another guy. He's got some work to do from a developmental standpoint, just like they all do. But he's not some fish out of water, just raw, don't know what he's doing out there. I mean, when you look at his production, he had the most, in terms of sacks and pressures combined the past 2 years. He had the most production out of all the edge rushers in that class. And just so happens that he plays with his hair on fire as well. So we feel good about where we're at that position. But, just going back to the interior, though, Chris, is, man, you know as well as anybody, like, man, if you're not good in the middle, I mean, I don't care what you have on the edges and that corner, and say, man, if you're not good in the middle, it's hard, man. That's a hard life. And so that's why we were really happy to get Tyleek to really fortify that middle, along with DJ Reader still coming back. We're able to get Levi Onwuzurike back in free agency. And then, while we're having Aleem come back too, we were able to sign Roy Lopez in free agency as well.
Roy Lopez,
yeah. So we feel really good about the middle, because if that's not right, man, it's just some long days on defense, man.
One more.
All right. Sorry about the delay there. I had something, wanted to restart my computer real quick. So I got to say it again. I mean, you have to believe in the Brad Holmes system, right? You have to believe in the way that this team is being built. Talking about Ahmed Hassanin and how he had the most pressures, he had the most sacks of anybody in the last 2 seasons before joining the Lions, with Boise State. So that means something, right? Did we get extremely lucky with a guy in the 6th round that has a ton of production and could end up being one of the better defensive ends in the league? Let's not detract, from Ahmed Hassanin in the way that he's been building his career thus far. He's only been playing football for about 5 years. And if he's able to produce the way that he produced the last 2 seasons, I think that is a testament to, how he absorbs the game, right? How he studies the game, how cerebral he is. But also, like Brad says, he plays with his hair on fire. The guy is constant action. When you watch, any film, I don't care what game it is, the guy is constantly disruptive and making, just making things miserable, right? Making plays miserable for the offense. And I think that when you insert a guy like that into this style of a defense that has, like I said earlier, elite pieces kind of sprinkled everywhere. Go back to the last 5 drafts for Brad Holmes. If you look at what he's done, he has never once taken a 2 of the same position in the first round. He has sprinkled in elite first rounders all over the place, all different positions. And then when you get further into, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th round, you've sprinkled in some more elite guys that happen to become elite, like Kirby Joseph, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brian Branch in the 2nd round. Those are guys that should have been first rounders when you go back and redraft it. So what Brad has done is put guys all over this team that can help a guy that's been taken in the 6th round get polished up, get through his first season. Yeah, he'll probably have a much better 2nd and 3rd season in the NFL than he will his first. And that'll probably relate to snap counts too, depending on who stays healthy and who produces. We know one thing about Brad and Dan that is always going to remain true. And that's whoever's playing the best football, those are the guys that are going to play. If he's playing the best football and he can be trusted, that's the biggest thing. If he can be trusted by Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell to do the right thing, he's going to get significant snap share. But I think without a doubt, looking at Marcus Davenport's career and what he has been able to do when healthy and on the field, you can't deny that. You can't deny how good he is when he's healthy. And I think that is the biggest gripe with Lions fans is, well, he doesn't stay healthy and he can't stay on the field. At some point, that'll change. Unfortunately, there's players that just get injured. And Emmanuel Mosley was that experiment, right? How can you go through a career like that and not just kind of laugh at it and be like, man, 2 ACLs back to back? Or was it Achilles? One of the 2. But 2 major injuries back to back and just couldn't get healthy in the 3rd season. I think he had hamstring issues in that, holding him up last year. So you have to look at the totality of what the Lions have done defensively and offensively, but defensively, you have to look at the defense and understand that they're in a position to win. They don't necessarily need a top-tier edge rusher on the other side. They just need everybody to do their job and to win their one-on-ones. And if they can do that, you saw how good this defense was last year. Bring it in, Lopez. I know a lot of you were not extremely excited about that. This guy can play football. And you heard what Brad said immediately. This is a guy that's going to fill in for a Lee McNeil, which we needed. And maybe that was your need play, right? That was your need, pick in the offseason during free agency, which I think is the only time that you're going to see Brad grab for needs. I mean, that's what free agency is all about. Those are your need guys. The draft, that's for guys that you want for now and in the future, but you're not really grabbing for need. You're trying to grab the best football players. Not every team does it that way. But I can tell you from watching what other teams have done in the past and what they're doing now, I think a lot of them are trying to figure out what is Brad Holmes' formula? What is his algorithm? How is he able to identify these guys and bring these guys in later rounds, and they turn out to just be, diamonds in the rough, right? And they just need to get polished for a little bit, and now they're a beautiful thing. And you're seeing that happen with some of these guys, like Derek Barnes, Malcolm Rodriguez, which I don't think anybody expected for him to stick around this long. And he's entering his fifth season now or fourth season now. So interesting stuff. But again, Brad Holmes gives us the verification that we need, the vindication that I believe that this channel deserves. This is what I've been talking about from the very beginning, going back to, probably 2 seasons ago. There's a way to build a football team, and there's a way not to build a football team. If you play Madden, then you're going to build the football team the wrong way, right? If you know how to build a football team and you play Madden, you'll build a football team the right way. But that's not how Madden is played, right? It's unrealistic. Same thing with fantasy. It's unrealistic. That is not how you build a football team. Everybody would love to have the best football players and have it all Madden or an all decade or, an all century team on their roster. It is almost impossible. This isn't the NBA, right? Where you can build these crazy rosters. It's the NFL. And you have 22 football players, 25 that need to start, and then you need 25 more that need to fill in. That is a tough assignment, having to create a team of really 69 football players that you hope, 20 of them really don't need to play a whole lot, but all of 53 of them are going to play, and they're going to play a lot. And you get 48, I believe, on Sundays. So let me see if we can get Riley in now and get some of his takes on this stuff. Riley, good morning. You got audio? Oh, wow. And it's really messed up. Your gain is like way high. Oh, yeah, it is shattered. So check your PC volume first. Yeah, Eric had the same problem the other day too. Like his audio was distorting big time. Yeah, I would check your PC volume before you talk, because it's bad. All right, did you say something? No. What's your PC volume at? Okay. What's your gain at? Yeah, it's just coming through all crackled. Why don't we just try to jump on tonight and get it fixed? Because I'm gonna use, like, I got your sheet prepared for today, so I'll go through some of your topics today. Yeah. Otherwise, we'll hold it up too much. But yeah, I would do some recordings and double check your audio on your side and make sure it's not all crackled out like that. All right, buddy. Have a good day. Well, that's a bummer. 2 days in a row, or 2 days that we had Riley and Eric on, that their audio is way too high, and I'm not sure why, because on my side it's definitely not. So anyway, I want to get into the third video, which is talking about Frank Ragnow. I guess I really didn't finish the whole defensive line talk, but you guys have heard it from me before. The Lions have built this team the right way, 1,000%. And if I can't validate it for you, I mean, listening to just about everybody else around the league has validated what Brad Holmes has done. Look at what the Eagles did. Brad's been doing that blueprint. It's not that Brad is copying that blueprint now. He's been doing that blueprint from the very beginning. Why do you think he brought in Levi Onwuzurike, Josh Paschal early, Aleem McNeil early? Why did he bring in all of these defensive tackles early throughout the process? There's a reason. Because he knows how to build a football team. And he knew that getting the defensive tackles in first is the best way to start building a defense. Then he grabbed Aiden Hutchinson. So now you've solidified two positions within the first couple of drafts. Unfortunately, Josh Paschal and Levi got injured. Couldn't play a whole lot. Otherwise, this defense is probably way different right now. If Levi and Josh Paschal were able to play immediately in significant snaps from day one, we may not even be talking about Tyleik Williams right now. You might have another edge rusher right now because that defensive tackle position would have been solidified. Just didn't work out that way. Injuries are part of the game. Injuries are part of the game, and it happens. So let me see if I've got this third video queued up. If not, I might just have to bring it in live. Let's go into the I guess the coaching corner of it, and I will have to bring that in live. Whereas I didn't even have the background on. Let me get the background rolling. We're just going to bring it in direct from YouTube this morning. I want to listen to this again because I know some of you probably listened to it yesterday, but for those of you that didn't get a chance to listen to this, so many good points taken about Ben Johnson and what Brad Holmes feels, about it, and said something that I don't. Is it really true what he's about to tell us? But he's been using a word in this podcast that is part of my intro. There's a reason why I use the word evolution. I thought it was a very good, word for last season. I guess the motto or the moniker of the year was evolution. This team was going to evolve, and Brad has been speaking to the evolution of this team now for a couple of seasons, starting back with last season, continuing with this season. So let me bring this in here. And we'll get rolling here. Okay, let's go.
This, and so it was very admirable job our coaching staff to get those guys ready like they did.
So speaking of coaching, and I think this is obviously a barometer for you guys being in a really good place, is when you lose both coordinators, it's because you're doing something right. Now, the challenges that follow are always great. As you prepare for the inevitable, which, I'm sure you guys know, hey, these guys are doing a great job. A year out, we might not have these guys in the future. How do you begin to mitigate for those situations? What goes into that process?
Yeah, look, first of all, I give Dan so much credit just for, you kind of had an idea that Ben and AG were going to be gone, but I don't think we were prepared for all of the guys that got poached. And I give Dan so much credit for just staying patient and not just trying to chase and fill and feeling under the gun and under pressure. Like, he stayed patient and he was so much on about fit. He ended up, doing a really nice job, and we got some really good coaches. But there's always news, but we're not as worried about it just because of who we were able to get and who we were able to play in. So like
Right.
Kelvin Shepherd, man, he's been groomed since 2021. Right up under AG, to eventually be in this spot. So we have a lot of confidence in him. And then Johnny Morton, he was with us previously when really the offense was literally built, in 22. So there's familiarity there. And then, being able to get a David Shaw, as passing game coordinator, being able to get a Tashard Choice, for
I saw that.
Yeah, man.
Tashard Choice is my guy, Brad. We ACC brothers, 40 years old, both of us.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We were in all the same, all-star stuff and all-American
That's
stuff.
right,
Tashard's
man. That was right, man. Like, Choice, man, he was a great get. So we were able to get some really good coaches. So we're not. I know on the outside it looks like, oh man, like what are you gonna do? But it's not all that much different than what we've been doing. And I do think that, we lost some great coaches, but we were able to fill those guys in with some great ones as well.
Well, I think Dan always seems to make it clear that it's about the players.
Yes.
Right. Which underscores, hey, like, listen, we're going to win and lose with the players. It's not because a coach walked out of here.
Yes.
Right. Like, I think that emphasis definitely helps. But then on top of that, I think like the Aaron Glenn replacement with Kelvin Shepherd, is it a coincidence that the guy played in the league? Because I feel like you guys have very intentionally filled the coaching staff with former players. And correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like it's even more paramount on the defensive side of the ball for whatever reason.
Yeah.
To have those former players. Can you speak to the importance of that?
Yeah, I think it's huge. And I didn't really truly feel the impact of it till when we got kind of late in the season, when we first got here in 21. And, you get to that point in November, getting into December, man. And, that grind, as you know, Chris, like your body isn't feeling the best. And to have somebody like Dan to stand in front of the room and tell the guys that and say, look, I know how you guys are feeling right now. Like, I know what this is like, man. You just have to respect it, man, because he knows, and he truly, like, he puts the players first and foremost, in all situations. And it's just a genuine respect. And look, he's got not just him playing and all our other coaches that have played in the NFL, but, it's all these other great qualities. It's just, the teaching and the development aspect. It's truly special. But when you know that guy's been in your shoes at the highest level, man, it's just the respect factor, and just the willingness to kind of just, run through a wall for a guy just increases. And it's just like what you said about players first. I'll never forget the first time, because, as you know, like me and Dan didn't even know each other when we got hired. And the first time I had a conversation with them, they had a lot of success on offense with New Orleans, and he was part of that staff. And I'll never forget, I asked him, I was like, hey, man, are we going to run something very similar to what you guys did in New Orleans? And he was like, it just depends on who we have. He was like, I just don't know the players that we're going to have yet. So I can't really answer that. And when he said that, it really was like, okay, like this guy, he is putting players first. And so that's a good observation by you.
Does it matter? I mean, like with Ben leaving, he's going to leave. He's probably the hottest name in football as far as that position is concerned, an offensive head coach on the market. But to go in division, I know you don't take that as like some disrespect, but there's probably a little bit more massaging and conversation ahead of that. Does Ben come to you guys and say, hey, I want you to know I'm thinking about taking a job and it's right down the road? Or is it, do you joke about it leading up? Like how does that go?
Yeah.
Okay. Before he gets into that, I just wanted to interject for just a moment that, Brad said he did not expect that they were going to lose that many coaches. They expected a few, right? They knew that, I think everybody knew, to use a Michigan term, we all knew that Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn were gone. It was, to what extent were they going to poach the rest of the coaching staff? And I personally didn't expect a ton of it. I thought that there would have been a level of respect, to the Detroit Lions and especially Dan Campbell, giving these guys the opportunity that they have had to not do that. And honestly, I think that we were poached a little bit more by both of those guys, Aaron and Ben, than I really expected. But you know what? Kudos to the guys that moved on and moved up and now have new opportunities. It is what it is. Also spoke about Calvin Shepard being ready, has been ready, right? Having coaches as former players and how important that is to be able to kind of get down to their level. Not to sound disrespectful or anything. That's not what it means. Is when you're down, in the players' fight, if you will, like they're going through it every day. These guys, their bodies are just getting smashed every day, and they hurt. They've got to go through all the rehab, and you have a guy that can step in as a coach and say, "I've been there before. I understand what you're going through today, and it's gonna get better tomorrow." And it's going to get better in 3 or 4 hours. It's going to get better in 2 days. Just keep on grinding. Just keep on pushing. That is so invaluable to have a coach to be able to get down to your level because he's been at that level before. But to have a mixture of more than half of your coaching tree as former players is incredible. And what that does and how that speaks into these young players' minds, you can do it. I promise you, I've been there. We'll see you on the other side. And I think that's a testament to 15 wins in 2024, where you've seen third and fourth string guys coming in, getting a ton of snaps that they haven't had their entire career, probably since college. And man, are they going through it. They are winded. They are hurting. They're probably doubting themselves. And then they're just plugging win after rep after rep, and it's starting to feel good. So when you look at what we have been able to do, or what the Lions have been able to do, is to now bring all of those guys back into a roster that have all of that experience. They have pushed their bodies to the limit. They have pushed their mental to the limit. And now they can trust in the coaches because the coaches just got them through that and helped identify that they can do it tomorrow. That is a different level, people. That is a different level of a football team. I'm telling you, for those of you that are doubting, you can pin this right now. For those of you that are doubting this team against one of the hardest schedules in the league, have no doubt. This is going to be a team that is going to go out and run through it. And as long as, it's going to require some guys staying healthy, but they're going to run through that schedule and they're going to come out on the other side. It may not be pretty all the time. We may not win by 20 points every game. We may get scored on by more than 20 points in some games, but I promise you, this is going to be a team that is going to look very, very well oiled and polished by the fourth game of this season. So, last thing, does it matter with Ben Johnson leaving? Let's hear what he had to say.
So obviously there are multiple jobs that were open that cycle, and so I didn't really know that. Like, I knew he had interviewed for Chicago, but he interviewed for a lot of the other positions too. So I really didn't know which way it was going to go. I was thinking Chicago would have probably been the last destination, but or I was probably hoping that, probably, but no, I really didn't know that was happening till it actually, till he accepted the job. And we had a little talk briefly before he left. I was happy for him, man. I mean, he's he is a hell of a coach, man. And you know, they have a really good one up there. But yeah, it's just a little like, man, Washington.
He must think that quarterback's pretty good. I tend to agree that kid's got a good shot to be pretty good. And I also wonder, the second part of it is like the changing the locks, right? Like it could be my best friend, but I'm changing the locks when you leave. How hard is that to do? And does the fact that John Morton, when he was with you guys, it had been a couple of years, so maybe he's had some different experiences and he'll build the offense differently from like a terminology standpoint or a tendency standpoint. Does that stuff get talked about? How do we change the locks? You know, it's not just he's leaving and we got to play him once every couple of years. It's twice a year.
Yeah. You know,
and here's where you're going to hear the word, man. The word that I gave this team last year was evolution, and this is where you're going to hear Brad talking about it in a little bit of a different light, though. And look, changing the locks on your best friend or, you know, like a former girlfriend or something, like it has to happen, right? You have to be able to change the locks, throw the other key away, and move forward. Ben is the ex-girlfriend right now, and you have to be able to move forward. So let's listen to Brad.
It's gonna be some new wrinkles, but I think in terms of the change the locks, that really comes from Dan in terms of he's looking to evolve it regardless.
Anyway,
regardless. So whether Ben was still here or not, like, you know, he's like, but I will say, just because John Morton and Ben were there both in 22 with Dan overseeing the whole thing, I don't see a lot of like wholesale change, but it's going to be some evolution there just because that's how Dan is, just regardless.
Yeah. Another guy you're replacing, not a coach, is Frank Ragnow. Obviously an amazing player. More than just.
Okay, before we get into the Frank Ragnow thing, that'll be the last segment that we go over today from the Greenlight Podcast. Big shout out to the Greenlight Podcast, man. They do an excellent job. What it must be like to have big budget, right? To have big budget and be able to bring in, you know, some of these high level interviews is incredible. Hopefully we'll be at that level at some point, someday. Some of the other channels that we do, they're getting close, and it'll be interesting to see what we do in that space. But you're gonna have to find those on your own. I can't tell you what they are. You have to find them on your own. And I'm not on them. I'm not doing anything with it. So this to me is interesting when you talk about changing the locks, right? Brad Holmes not knowing until the last minute that there was going to be a change with Ben Johnson that included him going to an NFC North opponent. Okay, let me be the cynical. Let me give you the cynical version of this. Ben Johnson wasn't open with the Detroit Lions then. If Brad didn't know, right? Now this is alleged speculation. If Brad Holmes didn't know that Ben was going to be going to the Bears, or that there was even an inkling or a shred of, you know, information that said that he was even interviewing with the Bears, that worries me a little bit, right? It worries me a little bit because why wouldn't Ben be open about it? Now, I know that there was information about Ben interviewing with the Bears, but why wouldn't he just be open about it? You know, and say, hey, look, this is what I'm going to do. As opposed to allowing it to hit the airwaves first, you know, before, you know, the Lions get an opportunity to understand that that's where he's going. I still feel like it's a huge slap in the face. Now, you know, I'm not going to say that Ben doesn't have the right. I don't know why my light just went off. I'm not going to say that Ben doesn't have the right to, you know, go wherever he wants to go and elevate his career wherever he wants to elevate his career. But I would say that there should be some sort of a responsibility and common just decency to at least have that conversation and say, hey, look, this is what I think I'm going to do. And just kind of hear it out from those guys. And it's not like you need their blessing or their approval or their permission. I mean, you're a grown man. You can go do whatever you want to do. But man, Brad not having any sort of an idea just tells me that Ben was a little bit closed off in that regard. However, now the non-cynical, right, non-speculatory version is maybe Brad isn't going to say, obviously he wouldn't say everything that he knew, leading into that decision, whether he knew about it beforehand or not. I'm not going to say that, not saying that Brad's lying, or I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that maybe, some of these things are just not discussed publicly, and they probably shouldn't be all the time. I think that we have too much, information about people these days, but this is a tough one, right? But changing the locks, it has to be done. What I love that he said here is, Dan Campbell's always trying to evolve this team. You have to. You cannot stay stagnant in the NFL. When they say the NFL stands for not for long and that they're talking about your career in the NFL, well, it's also about how these teams evolve and how the language is not for long, right? The scheme is not for long. Everything has to evolve every year in order for you to get better. Your opponents just had another 17 or 18 games of film on you from the year before. You have to change. You have to get better. You have to be a little bit more nuanced in how you're calling plays. And, you have to have a kind of a de novo reset, if you will. Everything has to be anew. And every year you have to look at it from that approach. We can't go into the season with the same calls. We can't go into the season, with the same scheme, or running the same plays out of 11 personnel all the time. We have to make it look different as much as we can, which, let's be honest, every team is running the same damn plays out of 11 personnel. They're just called something different, right? And the pre-snap adjustments are different. So evolution is key to a team, and that is why last year I gave that moniker to the team. This year it's against all odds, but last year it was evolution because we really needed to evolve after losing the NFC Championship game. This team needed to evolve into something better. It really did. Excuse me there. Man. Yeah, Peter, I highlighted that in a video where you said that the Bears made an illegal contact with an employee of the Detroit Lions. This was tipped off by Dennis Allen. Yeah. I highlighted that in a video, and I don't remember how many views it got, but that was it was apparent to me. I'm not sure why the Lions didn't follow up with it. Maybe because they'd rather just save some face with it. Probably would be my guess. But yeah, I thought so too. Especially when I read, the ruling, the NFL rules and how you can have contact. It definitely appeared to me that there was something going on there. All right, let's get into this last part about Frank Ragnow. And so we've done edge, we've done D-line, we've talked about Ben Johnson. I'm not going to do the one on Isaac Tesla. I think that you guys can go and listen to the last, 4 or 5 minutes of this podcast later on. They did talk about Isaac Tesla and how Brad said that, he had eyes on him, at the Senior Bowl, and how some of the scouts brought up, Isaac Tesla before that, but then he really jumped off the page at the Senior Bowl, which for all of you that were watching the Senior Bowl and in the other bowl with me, Trace will tell you, she was there. Who was the name that I wrote down? Isaac Tesla, Arroyo. There was some other ones that I wrote down too. I'm sure I have it on my book somewhere. But yeah, those were some of the names. I know that Oluwemi Oladefu, he was another name that I wrote down because I thought he was going to be really good. But Isaac Tesla jumped off the page to me. And I mean, it seemed like he was always in the right spot. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs this year. I know that, some fans got their panties in a twist right now because he's not participating. Who cares, right? He's going to get his time in training camp. And I'm pretty positive the Lions are in a really good spot right now with depth in the wide receiver room. We have 3 really good pass catchers and a 4th with Sam Laporta, and Khalif Raymond will be healthy this year. I think he's going to get pushed. As you guys know, Dominic Lovett is one of my dark horses to take somebody's position this year. And if he doesn't, because the Lions want to stick with experience, he probably will end up on the practice squad, but that is going to be a hard one. That is going to be a hard one to sneak through onto the practice squad. Now, I will have to dig into the rules again this year to figure out how many you can protect and how that works before I can figure out if it's even going to be a possibility. All right, let's get into this last segment on Frank Ragnow. This is probably the hardest one, man, but to hear what he's saying about center, to hear what he's saying about Frank is exactly why we've got the Motor City mullet in Detroit. I almost went into character there. I probably shouldn't. All right, here we go.
Just a glue guy, a great player, but seemed to be a leader as well. And obviously when it comes to the center, that's a big one. What do you look for when you're talking about trying to find the next center? What are some inherent traits that you think are really important in a center?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, it's intelligence. It's just it's intelligence, it's personality and communication. Like, I think you have to have that regardless of, before you get into size and lateral quickness and all this, and ability to get to the second level and picking up games and all that stuff, because that, you have to do so much from a communication, as you know, Chris, and an intelligence standpoint. And especially, like, man, it's hard, man. Like, that, it's a complicated scheme. You have a veteran quarterback that has a lot of freedom to do a lot of different things, so you have to stay up to speed, man. So those are the first things I look for when it comes to the center position. But when you go past that, do you have the ability to anchor? Because you're right there in the middle, man, and you have so much exotic games and dogs coming at you. And so you have to be able to anchor. And then even in the run game, you have to have, there's a level of quickness that you have to have, just in terms of not only just at the snap, getting off the ball, but getting up to the second level. And I've always thought at the center position, I would even branch that out to the guards too, interior in general, is that there's just there's an instinctual, or like there's an understanding of geometry and body positioning when you have to play out in space. So you can't just say, like, snap it and just run out there to the second level as fast as you can. Well, that's all for naught. I don't care how explosive and quick and fast you are getting to the second level. Man, if the linebacker's just dipping right up under you and you just completely miss the blocks, that doesn't matter. So you have to be able to kind of gear down instinctively. So it's a lot of traits, man, that a lot of people say, well, just throw somebody in there at center. No, man, like, you have to have a lot of the intangible qualities first and the mental aptitude first. And then there's a level of physical qualities you got to have.
You think Frank's probably fishing right now?
If I had to bet, I would, yes, probably so, man. He is the best, man. He is the best. He literally, when I first got the job, obviously I scouted him coming out, and he was a great player. When I first got the job, he was the first player that had texted me, man, and just reached out and was like, hey, man, congratulations, all this. But he is the all-time warrior, man, just a great human being. And he's going to be sorely missed in our locker room, because he fit everything that we were about, man. So, I don't know if you can just replace him, because it's not just the player, it's the person as well.
No question. I mean, was it one of those things where you could see the injuries mounting, or did you have a feeling?
Yeah, he's been through a lot. He's battled a lot, man. And I didn't know really how long it was going to go, in terms of, eventually, your body sometimes just can't take but so much. And he's got a family too, man. So, when you start talking about long-term view and kids and all that type of stuff, man, like, look, man, I didn't even play in the NFL, and I got a bad back, and I'm an old dad with young kids, and I had to watch myself bending over to pick. I'm like, I can't just bend over to pick you. Like, I need to squat down. It's like, I didn't play in the NFL. So you talking about the grind that those guys have to go to, the grind that you went through, man. Like, that's just that's different level, man. So I got the utmost respect, but you had a little bit of a sense that maybe it might happen. I didn't know if it was going to be this year. I didn't know if it was going to be next year, but those are things you gotta think about and try to prepare for.
Well, obviously, you're able to add.
Okay, so that'll be the end of the review for the Greenlight podcast with Brad Holmes. So let's dig into this for just a moment here. Frank Ragnow obviously was a huge piece to this offensive line, and in more ways than one. Not just the all-pro center that he is. I would hope that someday he could be a Hall of Famer. I don't know. I think it's really hard to get into the Hall of Fame as a center. And, I would, to echo, I guess, a few things that they were saying, as a glue guy, obviously super important. But his intelligence, Frank, from day one coming out of Arkansas, all you heard was how smart he was. And you know what the difference was for me when I saw Frank show up? There was a video I watched the other day, but you seen Frank show up after getting drafted, and he steps out of the van or whatever he was in. I don't remember what kind of vehicle it was, in a suit. Right? He comes to his first, day on the job in a suit. He's ready to get down to business. Today, these guys are showing up in jumpsuits, T-shirts, huge chains, some Nikes on. Frank was about business. And he showed up in his suit. And to me, that kind of showed the classiness of Frank, right? How classy he was as a person, the respect that he had. And I'm not saying that you can't show up, in whatever you want to wear. I mean, there's obviously not a dress code. These guys are football players. They're going to wear whatever they're going to wear. But I think it just separates, who Frank was from day one. A few notes that I made out of this segment was the intelligence, right? The communication. I spoke about this last week or so when I was talking about Tate and Ratledge and how, if he's able to take over as the center, it may not happen right away. And that's because Graham Glasgow has that intelligence. He has that experience. And I think that Graham Glasgow is going to be the guy to get the job right away. And to have a guy next to him in Tate Ratledge who is intelligent, who can play the game at a high level, this will help him grow in his first season. That if he is going to take over at center, putting him next to somebody like Graham Glasgow is going to be imperative to his growth for the future. I wished, last season that Brad would have brought somebody in that he could have started to groom next to Frank. It's something that I wanted it done for, the last couple of seasons, especially after the 23 NFC Championship loss and the way that Frank was feeling. I said it then. It's a very, quick matter of time before I think Frank retires. And now it's happened. And we didn't expect it this year. Brad didn't expect it this year. But, Brad even said, he knew it was going to happen at some point soon. The guy's a family man. He's trying to think about his future, not necessarily thinking it was going to happen this season, but then it does. And I think that that's kind of the game within the game, is you can only be so prepared. And Brad has a big job to do to make sure that he can, solidify positions now and for the future to make sure that this team is ready to go. Do we have a hole right now? Is there? I think there's a giant hole at the center position. Not that we don't have a warm body to put there, but I think that we have a giant hole because to replace Frank is near impossible. It's going to take some time before we find somebody that is going to be able to do what Frank did. And I don't even know if it's even possible to do what Frank did. He was that good at his job. When I think about guys, Jason Kelsey, right? One of the most cerebral centers, I think, to play the game. He was not the biggest man in the world, but he played with such savviness and intelligence that he was able to do a phenomenal job at the center position. He talks about quickness and recognizing the second level with instincts. Exactly what Frank did. Now, the new guy's going to have to be able to do this. There's something that you guys have heard me say before, and I'm going to say it again right now. I don't care how fast you are, how big you are, how strong you are. In this game, at the next level, it's from the shoulder up, right? You have to be more mental than you are physical because everybody at this level has the physical tools. It's the separator is the guys that have it, from the mental side. You can be as fast as you want, as a wide receiver or a corner. But as a corner specifically, even though you're running, let's say, a 4.25 or a 4.3 or 4.35, like extremely fast, if you don't know where to be, when to be there, you don't have good instincts or awareness, you're going to run yourself right out of the play. Whereas Brian Branch, who isn't the fastest guy in the world, plays with his brain on fire. He's smart. So he knows where to be, when to be. And that's why he's able to make the plays that he does, because he's an extremely smart football player. Now, I'm not saying that stuff translates to out of football. I think that there's a difference between football intelligence and overall intelligence. I think some of it translates a little bit. But he talks about instincts and body position to play in space. And this is a very good, valid point that Brad made. Look at how many times that we're getting these guys into the second level, whether it's a pulling guard or whether it's the center. Corey last week busted down a play of Frank Ragnow where he did a seal block, right? And then he started working his way up, to make another block up into the second level. That's the type of stuff we're talking about. Again, you can be fast, you can be explosive, but you can also explode yourself right out of the play. And like Brad said, yeah, if a linebacker's coming down on you and he gets underneath you, well, you lost that rep. You need to make sure you seal off that linebacker before you get to the second level. Depending on where that linebacker is. If that linebacker's meeting you at the line of scrimmage, you're not quite to the second level yet. So it's imperative that you find a guy that has these instincts, the awareness, the ability that Frank did have and that he utilized. Smartness versus speed, right? You can be a slower guy as long as you're smart. Amon-Ra St. Brown, not the fastest wide receiver out there. Why is he able to get open so often? Why is he able to do what he does and he's not running a blazing 40? Well, it's because he's smart. He knows where to be, when to be. He knows how to take advantage of a DB. He runs very clean routes. Being smart. One thing I picked up out of this, which I think we're going to see more of, he mentions Jared Goff. He says our veteran quarterback has a lot of freedom. So the center has to be, up to speed on what Jared's allowed to do and what he's going to call at the line. Now, he also mentions he didn't know how long it would go for Frank. He knew it was coming. I think that all of us knew that it was coming. The question was when, not if, of course. But I want to bring something in here. I wrote something earlier on today's sheet, and I wanted to talk about why it's extremely important for the center to have the intelligence that they need. And this is what I wrote. So the center is one of the most mentally demanding positions in football, right? The quarterback of the offensive line is how I often refer to it. I think it's how a lot of people refer to the center, and why intelligence and communication skills are probably more important than anything else at the center position. Number one, you have pre-snap reads and adjustments. The center has to analyze the defense before every play. You have to identify the blitzes, the stunts, the shifts. They're often calling out the protections, or the protection schemes, if you will. and then making the adjustments to ensure that the offensive line is ready. That's all pre-snap. You guys know how long, you get between plays, right? The play clock is 35 seconds? And by the time they get up to the line, oftentimes there's less than 10 seconds on the clock. And then that ball is snapped within 5 or 6 seconds. So you're talking seconds that Frank Ragnow has to come up, identify the blitz, identify the stunts and the shifts, call out the protection schemes, and then, hike the ball. But then also make sure everyone on the offensive line is ready to go. That's a very tough job. He also has to call out the blocking assignments. He has to relay the blocking schemes to his teammates, ensuring that proper coordination among the line is set. They know what they're doing. A mistake in communication, it could lead to a blown assignment somewhere, and then, Jared Goff getting blown up in the back or Jahmyr Gibbs getting stung. I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong. You have audibles and line checks. The quarterback decides, if the quarterback, like Jared Goff, if he decides to change, the play at the line of scrimmage, the center has to be able to communicate the shift to the entire line quickly and clearly, especially with the line checks. If Jared's calling for a different protection, then you've obviously need Frank, or in this case, Graham Glasgow or Tate Ratledge, to be able to communicate that. Leadership and confidence is huge too. The offensive line, they really rely on their center to be that steady presence, if you will. The guy that they can depend on. And Frank was always that. How are we going to find that in the next center? Who's going to be able to embody what Frank was able to do? And when you go back and listen to a video that I did the other day about Tate Ratledge, or it might have been one of the live streams, I'll have to turn it into a video. You listen to Tate Ratledge from 2023 in an interview, and all I heard was Frank Ragnow, Penei Sewell, Taylor Decker, just oozing out of this guy. And that's exactly why he's a Detroit Lion. Understanding the defensive tactics at the center position is why, like I said earlier, players like Jason Kelsey or Jeff Saturday, and we're going to put Frank Ragnow in that, that realm of names. They weren't just, physically skilled, but they were incredibly intelligent, vocal leaders. They made their teams better. It's going to be tough to replace Frank, man. He's going to be sorely missed. He really will be. All right, so that's it for that review. We got a few minutes left here. Someone earlier in the chat said that they had a question about Shamar Stewart. Who was it? What was the question? Something about, I guess, really what was going on in Cincinnati. The thing that I can tell you about the OTAs is what I heard and read yesterday is that he just left practice, the final practice, because the contract situation is still boiling over. Now, I highlighted this the other day when I said, man, are we so lucky that we don't have to deal with these things as fans, but that the Lions don't have to deal with these things as an organization? We haven't had any holdouts. We haven't had anybody, really start trouble over their contracts. Now, there's a lot of things that we won't hear, right? We're not going to hear a conversation between Brad and Amon-Ra St. Brown, or, Brad and Aiden Hutchinson. We don't know if anyone's considering to hold out because we haven't had anybody hold out. But I would say, if I were to venture a guess, we haven't even come close yet. And that's partly because Brad gets these deals done early in the process, number one. And number two, I think that the players that the Lions bring in, and to Brad's credit and something that he said a while ago, I wouldn't expect those problems because of the type of guys we do bring in. Like, these are the guys that we know that love to play football. It's more about playing football than it is about money. Yes, at some point, it will always be about the money. But it's lesser, to the point of they just want to play football. They want to win football games. their allegiances to the organization and their teammates to go out there and win a football game, right? To win a Super Bowl. So with the Shamar Stewart thing, Shamar basically called out the Cincinnati Bengals because he said, and I'm paraphrasing this, not exact quote, he said that they would rather win arguments than win football games. That's a bold statement to say that the Bengals organization, the management that has completely fumbled Trey Hendrickson, would rather win an argument over just getting a contract right. Now, from what I understand, the research that I did about this said that they're trying to set a new precedent with Shamar Stewart and that they want to be able to void future guarantees. Now, I need more information on this because as I understand it, rookies get guaranteed deals, right? It is set in stone that you are drafted at this position and your window of salary is from here to here. The signing bonus is kind of up to, I think, the organization, but it is also set at a base level, if I understand it correctly. So let's say you get $20 million over, the first 4 seasons, and your signing bonus is no less than 25%. Right? That might be the CBA standard. But the teams can pay them up to whatever they want in a signing bonus. And that the guarantee, we'll say, is 75% or 100%. That's set in stone by the CBA. Now, these aren't exact numbers. I'm just throwing out a scenario. Why is it so difficult to get a player like Shamar Stewart signed? And now it's gone public. And not only has it gone public, but even Joe Burrow spoke up the other day. And he said that these are distractions. He's like, we had distractions last year with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. And now we have a, distraction lesser of which with Trey Hendrickson. But now you have Shamar Stewart, who's the future of the team at that position. And I think he's going to be an all-star. I think that Shamar Stewart is going to be one of the best to do it at some point. Might take a few seasons, but I think he will be. So that's the gist of it with Shamar Stewart in Cincinnati. Yeah, King SJ, it's a huge mess in Cincy. Absolutely a huge mess. One of these other topics I think I'm going to save. It's about Jameson Williams. I'm going to put it into a video a little bit later on today. And it was a question that came in, right? There was a question that came in they were asking me, what is the plan with St. Brown and Jameson Williams when drafting them, right? Here's the question. I'm curious, what was the plan with St. Brown and J-Mo when drafting them? Was J-Mo supposed to be the number 1 receiver since they traded up for him very early? And then St. Brown surprised the Lions and became the number 1 with J-Mo's injury and suspensions? I can answer this part of it, of what my take would be. I'm not necessarily thinking that St. Brown really surprised anybody. So when was J-Mo selected? He was selected in 2022 with Aiden Hutchinson, and he was still injured, right? So we knew that he wasn't going to play that season, or at least hardly any of that season. He got in the last 6 games or so. Amon-Ra was already, he was already out the gates. The last 8 games of 2021, right? It was 21 that he was drafted, correct? Yeah. So it was the last 8 games of 2021 where he really clicked with Jared Goff. And it was because of the last 8 games or so of that season that kind of boiled over into 2022, where St. Brown was starting to already break some of Calvin Johnson's records. Most consistent games with a touchdown. Most consistent games with, was it 6 or more catches and a touchdown? I don't know. I'd have to go back and look, but there was a lot of independent, organizational records that were broken. There was an NFL record that was at least tied or broken already before JMO, even stepped on the field. So I don't necessarily feel that St. Brown was surprising somebody after JMO was selected, because JMO didn't hit the field until the end of 2022. And like I said, St. Brown was already one of the best receivers in the league. And then in 2023, again, St. Brown, he came right out of the gates, right where he left off, and had a huge season. And JMO, he was suspended a little bit, but I don't think that changed anything. JMO was still young. He was basically a rookie in 2023. He was highly immature based on reports and things that we have read and heard. And not only that, but he was not grasping the playbook as quickly as I think that some had hoped, again, as reported. And just go watch some of the film. You can see that he was running bad routes. He was just kind of, just like we were talking about, right? Speed versus intelligence. JMO's got all the speed in the world. But if you don't know how to run a clean route, if you don't know how to, dig and, put your foot in the ground at the right spot where Jared Goff needs you to be at 2.3 seconds, I need you here. And then that ball's coming out and I need you here. And you went a yard too deep and then 10 yards too far, you can't do that, right? That's going to screw up the timing. That's how interceptions are thrown. And I know that's hard for people to understand, that Jared Goff throws interceptions because of a bad route of Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams is not the best route runner in the world at all. Last year, he started to run a little bit better, a little bit crisper routes, but he is not the best route runner. At Alabama, he was kind of like, run fast, Bryce throw it up, go get it. That's not the way it works in the NFL. This is a scheme of timing. And that's where I think that JMO's finally started to evolve. And I think that JMO's going to be just fine as long as he stays up there with his mental part of the game and his maturity part of the game. The two M's right now that he really needs is the mental fortitude, as you see, somewhere back here, and maturity. I think that is the most important thing that's going to help JMO evolve this season. So good question, but the tail end of this, I guess I have an idea of what's going to happen to JMO. Talking about contracts. And I'll get into that later today in a video. Let me pull up Riley's sheet. Let's see if there's anything in there that we can cover today, and then I'm going to jump off. Got a lot of yard work to do today. A lot more work than I anticipated with trying to get this house ready to go. Okay. Talked about Shamar. Okay, so Riley put down Derek Barnes' return to the lineup and what it means for the Lions. This was a Tim 20-man article. Riley wanted to know in the comments, obviously in the chat right now, you tell us if you think that this season can be Derek Barnes' best of his career. He has been the forgotten man to him because he missed most of last season. A reminder was that the Lions awarded Barnes a 3-year, $25.5 million deal with $16 million in guarantees as one of their first moves in free agency. Now, the question is, how important is Barnes to this team? Well, he's extremely important. He's extremely important because the Lions didn't go out and add anybody to this unit other than Grant Stewart, which jury's still out on what Grant Stewart's effectiveness is going to be within the game plan. So according to Tim 20-man here, let me just kind of browse this article because I didn't read it before this. Lions are returning 10 starters on the defense. Very experienced group returning for the defensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator Calvin Shepard. Talking about Aiden, Brian Branch, Kirby. And then he goes in to say that another key return for Shepard's defense will be Derek Barnes at the Sam linebacker role. It is such a unique position for the Lions defense with what they ask that player to do. Someone who can rush the passer on the line of scrimmage, set a hard edge in the run game, and be able to play in space and cover. It takes a unique skill set to be able to do all three of these things well in the league. Now, I haven't seen our Sam linebacker get after the passer really ever, to be honest with you. I don't, hardly ever have I seen that happen. I don't know what Tim Twentyman's talking about here. Not to say that they're not asked to do that, but tell me the last time any one of our linebackers has gone after the quarterback. I mean, especially last season, we had a lot of injuries, so we were dialing up blitzes, but I can't specifically point out to anything that our linebackers have really done from attacking the quarterback perspective. It always seemed to attack, the run game and then dropping into coverage, but maintaining those flats and that middle zone there, in the pass game too. Not to say that when you have all of the pieces of the puzzle put together that you can't utilize the Sam in that position, because that is essentially what a Sam is supposed to be able to do. I just haven't seen it enough from the Lions yet and utilizing the Sam linebacker. But this is why I thought that the Lions would bring in a Sam at some point during the draft. I was never really sold on Derek Barnes. I know that he had a couple of good games, last year to start the season. But outside of that, does anybody really agree or disagree that Derek Barnes was the answer? And I want Derek to make a liar out of me. Like, I want Barnes to be able to do some great things within this defense this year. But that's my heartache. I guess I have heartburn with Derek Barnes right now. So, let's see. Jay-Z says Derek Barnes is supposed to have his career year last season, but injuries suck. Yeah, it's a great point. It's one of those things that, injuries seem to derail a lot of football players. I mean, that's just what injuries do. And sometimes they never get their career back. Now, if I remember the play, I can see it in my head right now where Derek Barnes was coming off the left side of the defense and he got crackback blocked at the knees. Illegal block in my opinion, but it wasn't called. And that's what took him out. I think it was PCL, MCL, if I remember correctly, that took Barnes out. It was week 3 against Arizona. Go figure. Yeah, he had PCL, MCL. ACL was not damaged. It worries me. Like that big of a knee injury, having that many tendons involved, it worries me a little bit about how quickly he's going to be able to bounce back this year. Now, he is cleared. He will be ready to go this offseason. And that's good news, right? I mean, it's good news that he is, ready to go and it'll be good for camp and all those things. Hopefully he's wearing something on that knee, whether it's, a really, really tight sleeve, something to keep that knee intact, or maybe some sort of a light geared knee brace. Obviously, you don't want to wear a big bulky knee brace like the offensive line do, because you're not going to be able to run. You're definitely not going to be able to play your position. But hopefully he's wearing something. His statement, coming into this year was, he said, quote, "I'm good. Physically, I'm good. My knee is good. I finally get to, after this free agency thing, I get to take a deep breath and go out to Tampa and start training." So that was, that was a while ago. that he said that a couple months ago. I think that he said that. Well, so it's good to hear that he's fine. I guess to answer the question, how important is Derek Barnes to this team this year? He's extremely important. He's extremely important because we just don't have a ton of Sam linebackers. And it's a very unique position. I wish the Lions would have gone out and added another Sam. I think that it was imperative that we go out and do something like that. Linebacker position, I think, is good overall. I don't think it's great. I think it's good. I think Jack is great. I think the surrounding pieces are good. Grant Stewart, I'm interested to see what he can do, but I really wanted a young Sam linebacker that could really drop back in coverage, and because we don't have guys, in my opinion, that cover well. I'm not saying that Alex Anzalone didn't have to cover a ton, because he did. I'm not saying that, that Derek Barnes won't have to get into coverage a ton, because he will. But I wanted someone that was just that unique, rare athlete that we could have had. We could have had in the third round still, but definitely, into the second round, I think that there could have been somebody there. I'm not saying Brad made a mistake, because he didn't. I think what Brad did was perfect. Had this not been a case of Frank Ragnow possibly retiring, there might have been an option there for, the Lions to get another linebacker. I don't think that they still would have taken a defensive end that early, because you heard Brad say that, look, Ahmed Hassanin he's had the most production out of anybody in college the last 2 seasons. And that type of production is hard to replicate. I don't care what team you're playing on, or what level of FBS you're playing in, Division I, Division II. It's really hard to replicate that kind of production. But we'll see where it goes. I still think that the Lions are going to have to add a linebacker at some point. Not having Malcolm Rodriguez to start the season, it's more imperative that Derek Barnes has a very good season, and that he can't be gun shy, right? He can't be shy about going up and attacking the line of scrimmage and worrying about his knee. But I just hope that the NFL really cracks down on those types of blocks, because that was unnecessary, to say the least. So, all right, that's it for today. You guys have been great. Now I've got to get back to the honeydew list and get a lot of things done this weekend. I'm going to get some videos done at some point today, and we'll get them released. I keep recording videos and then I don't release them. I don't know why I do that. I record them and then I'm like, yeah, I just don't feel like releasing them. I will be starting some new channels though, and possibly a new channel with somebody else. We'll have some news next week. Those of you that know, don't say anything. We will have some more news next week on what's coming up with this channel, and we'll see you guys next week. So, hey, we had to pivot. Couldn't have Riley in this morning. We should have Eric next week, Monday. We had to pivot today, and that's what we do. This is not the Pivot Podcast, but it is Rockhound Detroit Lions Rise and Grind Morning Show. Thank you guys. Subscribe, like on your way out. Next week, Monday, we're going to get back to, let's get these likes up to like 75 in the morning. We'll turn ads off. But if you can't do that, I can't turn ads off. So you guys have a wonderful day. We'll catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye.
Adam Schefter at ESPN says there's 275,000 people.
Well, that was some party in downtown Detroit. 775,000 people, shattering the NFL draft attendance record.
This is the future.
All grits.